All right, Mike. First you, then we'll talk HomeVestors.
All right.
And it's the only scripted question that I have, and it's the same question I ask at the start of every one of these because I'm interested.
Sure.
How did you accidentally fall into franchising? What's your franchise accidental story?
So it's true that it is accidental for everybody.
Yeah.
I think in about 2 weeks, it'll be 20 years on the dot that I first started in franchising. And it was with a little regional automotive repair concept called Cotman Transmission in the Philadelphia area where I'm headquartered. And I started out doing SBA loans for new franchisees. And about a year into that, I don't know how I got that job, honestly. They wanted somebody with a sales background and a little bit of finance, and I had done mortgages before that for 6 months. And I think I was the only applicant, to be honest with you. But I ended up learning everything about SBA 7A loans, and got pretty good at it. And then about a year and a half into that, Cotman and Amco merged, and I kind of raised my hand and said, I'd like to help people get into this business. I got a pretty good system set up here for the loan piece. Can I do franchise sales? And they said, yeah, sure. We're gonna drop your salary. Here's a stack of leads. Welcome to franchise sales. And so I did that, and for ever since. And I've been fortunate to have some really good mentors along the way. Have been with some really great brands, but that's the accidental how I got into franchising story.
I love that. So comment one, I hit 20 years in February. So
cool.
Nice that we might be the only two that are celebrating right now, but
I know, celebrating getting old.
Love the Cotman story. We worked with Cotman a long time ago. Like right when we started this business, I was just pulling up like all the Anthony Padulo and Jack Pajinski. Like there's a lot of people, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of Todd Leff.
He was, and then he went on to obviously do. I mean, he was doing amazing things there, but then of course even bigger with
but it's interesting because I think that and what I like about this question and this topic is for 99% of franchisees, they're the same. There's some sort of turbulence that happens in their life or their career that makes them reevaluate what they want to do with their life or their career, and they buy into franchise. And it's always accidental for them too, that they weren't thinking about it. Some obviously come from multi-generational families. That's right. Everybody else is like, I didn't even know this was a thing. And I like thinking back to the day before I joined the franchise industry. If you had said, Nick, explain franchise, I couldn't do it. If I go to
McDonald's or something,
that's it, McDonald's. And if I go to a franchisee and say, could you explain it? They say no. Yet every franchisor goes, buy my franchise. And I'm like, what is this thing?
Yeah, that's funny. That's a really good point. And I think I try not to forget that feeling of not knowing, 20 years ago what it was. I've taken, because I feel like I got in a habit, or not a habit, just sort of taking for granted how much I know about franchising, and try to always remind myself that, you got to start every conversation with a new person like they have no idea what it is, because when you do it that way, it gives a lot more opportunity to explain, or at least get through myths and maybe some head trash that people think might go along with it. So, but yeah, I think it's really important to kind of remember that we all got here sort of accidentally.
Well, and not that I'm at this point in our conversation, but like your first message is join the #1 real estate investing franchise. Your second message is build financial independence. But how and why through franchising? Like I would even you just talking about what is an FDD, what are you going to see when you go through this process? Like for someone to have that, what it does is it accelerates their process of even filling out that form, because now they at least have the baseline of what it means, and it offsets some of that stuff. So
sure.
Give me a lay of the land. What's the state of the union with HomeVestors? How's growth going and everything else?
Yeah, no, it's going really well. I mean, so obviously I mentioned how long I've been in franchising. I am the new kid on the block here. Started with HomeVestors back in February, and I've told this to a bunch of people, everything I thought I knew about franchising, I wouldn't say it went out the window, but it's a lot different. It's a lot different than my experience with other brands I've been with, and all really good, surprising differences. I remember my first meeting. So I walked into the VP role. We got a team already in place, and I'm, getting to know people and all that kind of stuff. But they had a meeting, a pipeline meeting, and I jump in on it, and first thing I hear is like, I got so-and-so in Dallas, and I just introduced them to all the franchisees around them. And I was like, wait, did you warn them that sometimes franchisees tend to be territorial by nature, and expect to hear this and this and that? And they're like, they looked at me like I was at three heads, because in this brand, I mean, our franchisees want more franchisees right next door to them. And it was so, and I'm not saying there's not other franchise brands that embrace their franchise brother and sisters in arms, but it was so opposite. It was so, because, and everybody else in franchise will say on the franchisor side that, well, that's more marketing dollars and there's more brand awareness, and it's all accurate and true. But for us, it's really a core component of this business. It's how you go from mailers to billboards in a market, the more franchisees. So, and there's all different levels of that in between. So we have more franchisees referring, friends and family to this business that are, right in the same area. So really, that was really unique. The other thing, and I know I don't mean to be skirting the State of the Union question, because I will get to it, but I think this gives a little bit of context around it, with that this is a business that, meaning real estate investing, that people, first of all, we'll say this, for the most part, unless it's super niche, it's probably fair to say that you could do most businesses independently, right? You're going to have a lot harder learning curve and all that kind of stuff that the franchisor provides. Real estate investing, that's a harder conversation to navigate, because most people know somebody that's flipped a property. Everybody has seen some sort of flipping TV show that made it look really easy. Like, why do I need a franchise to go buy a house cheap, go find a contractor, and then, sell it, right? And that's the part that I really wanted to figure out early on. And I did that by spending a lot of time with franchisees, because we have a 5-year franchise agreement, first of all, and that was new to me too. But yet we have 10, 15, 20, 25-year franchisees. It's like, what? Okay, cool. You drank the Kool-Aid to get in, but then, like, what kept you here? Like, why not take everything you learned and then just go do it without paying royalties or transaction fees? And then it just turns out there's a bunch. There's a lot of there's the access, there's the inbound leads, there's the community aspect, the amount of dollars our franchisees save because of our vendor relationships. I think it was like over $10 million last year. So there's a lot of reasons and access to capital, right? So we have lenders, that work with us, some of them exclusive, that, it gives the person, that's usually the biggest thing about being independent, is, finding these off-market homes to buy and then coming up with the capital to purchase those homes. And then, so anyway, long story short is, it's why a lot of folks don't know that we're a franchise, because they see We Buy Ugly Houses, they've seen the billboards. They don't necessarily tie it to HomeVestors. However, once they understand, and I'm okay that they don't know it's a franchise. I do want people to know that they can invest in it, because it's an investment system. We happen to operate under a franchise model. But long story short, to go back to your question, we are, this is another thing that I was like, I'll be honest with you, we're probably going to have sort of a not quite there's a little bit of lull in that, because they're looking at interest rates and housing market and all that stuff. And then we're still going to bring in 70 new franchisees this year, and that that'll be short of what we were expecting. So even that, for me, most franchise systems that I've been with, when bringing in 70 new franchisees, that's a pretty decent year. And so all of these things, but it is, validation is awesome. People They understand this business isn't for everybody. They will tell people the good, bad, and the ugly. We have our new CEO, meaning within the last 3 years, has really boosted morale within the organization. That's not to say anything negative about prior leadership, but it's really cool to, especially being a new person, to be in a meeting with a bunch of franchisees, and we announced this new thing that we rolled out, and then a franchisee in the back is I suggested that, and they're actually, we have almost 1,000 franchisees across the United States, and the franchisees still have a voice. So anyway, we're in a really good spot right now.
I don't know how much control you have over website. Do you have control over website?
Me personally, I have a lot of influence on our franchise landing page. As far as our primary website, little to no.
No, I'm talking about the franchise one. So here, I would play back about the 6-minute mark and hear some of the things you said. So what I wrote down, like if I was reshaping the user experience based on who the target is, the first message I put in: this franchise, our franchisees want you next door. Like what an impactful statement. It's powerful. When I look at, like, now you get into your bullet points of the benefits of HomeVestors, nationally recognized, blah, blah, blah. That's boring to me. What I heard was $10 million sales savings through vendor relationships, exclusive lender relationships, marketing machine. Like, I heard things that are like, all right, that seems pretty cool. And so I would play that back, and hopefully nobody hears the last thing that I'm going to tell you to do, because I went and looked up this one. So go do it right away, even if you buy it personally. WeBuildBeautifulFranchisees.com is available. That would be the URL that I use.
Dang, man, you've been doing some marketing in your time, haven't you?
20 years. I told you.
A little brand building, a little PR. Yeah. Wow. Okay. You're gonna have to wait. What domain is available?
WeBuildBeautifulFranchisees.com, which is it plays into that.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that is that's better than the word franchise, because what you just talked about a beautiful system that you never take credit for. Like your image is like handing keys. Well, fine if you're handing keys to a franchisee, but you have all these great franchisee stories of validators. You just talked about 5-year franchise agreements where they don't leave. They're like, I'm in this thing because of all those other bullet points. And so I think it's obviously a great brand. It's a tremendous brand, but it's not taking credit for the things that get you from 70 to whatever this gap is and what they want to sell.
Yeah, that's
there's value in that.
That's awesome. That's really good, Nick. I appreciate that.
So obviously you've touched on so many different elements of franchise sales from my in your career. From my viewpoint, like it's one, and it's very hard or difficult to sell franchises because you're really trying to convince someone to invest their life savings in a business they have little to no control over. That in my opinion, is the most complex thing in the world to sell. I haven't thought of one thing that is harder to sell than a franchise. For franchisors, though, and maybe look backwards in your career, because obviously you're in a great cultural spot now, but for franchisors, I'm always fascinated by the fact that like the value of a franchise deal is almost in a franchise fee. I'm like, cool. Let's just take 3-year royalty, not even 10, not 5, not 10, and let's get rid of that franchise fee. Let's look at that number. How does that feel? So the exercise that I go with when we're working with an executive team to right size what winning is, I'm like, let's look at 3-year royalty and whatever that number is. I did this recently. We got to $200,000 that they're going to pull in 3 years. I said, I got a check in my pocket right now for $200,000. What would you pay me? And the CEO goes, I'll give you $199. I go, you're budgeting $10,000 per deal for franchise marketing. And it was this aha moment of like, boy, we don't look at the deal value. We don't look at the enterprise value of that franchisee. We make every franchise sale equal when some come in and go to 1 to 2 to 3 to 20, and some stall out at 1 and never grow. So I'm sharing those because I just want your insights on what's your reaction to some of those comments.
So man, I want to be very careful about things I say, because I have a thought on why franchise fees are high.
Brokers.
Okay, maybe yes, you know, so that I would think that's very much part of it. Now, how do you go from something, our brand is very well known and we have all that stuff, and you can get into this for the franchise fee in the low 40,000 range, and then there's going to be a brand new junk removal franchise where the franchise fee is going to be 70,000, and those conversations are very interesting to me, and having been on that side, we all probably have some sort of canned answer, right? That's sort of the ticket to, that's so you don't have to go through all the troubles and trials and tribulations that the founder went through and all that kind of stuff. But when I look at it as there has to be some sort of value. It can't just be because of the cost of adding franchisees is such that we need to have a franchise fee that covers that. I actually, we have a really interesting thing. We have our total franchise fee. It's a full franchise, we call it. It's $85,000. And if you buy that franchise fee, if you invest at that level, there's no royalties attached to that. There's just you don't have royalties. So, but what we do, most of our franchisees that come in, we allow you to pay half of that, and then you have a small royalty, but a little piece of every transaction goes towards you becoming a full. And so we're using it as a milestone, path to growth, to say, and I mean, there's plenty of franchisors out there who have a decelerating schedule based on volume, which I love. I think that's really, really cool when I see that. And I put us in that category. Now it's a little bit different. We'll always have a transaction fee, but even those go down, and that's only 0.8% to 3% of the deal. And that goes down as your volume increases. But then to be able to just drop off royalties once you become a full franchisee, a couple of years into it, you're really mastering it. You need a little bit less support from corporate because you've now been doing it, and here's your reward for getting to that point. It's neat. I think that's really neat. But to directly answer, if someone were to ask me, why are franchisee fees so high? I would say it's because of the cost to attract franchisees, and it's a very crowded space, obviously, as we know. And every day, I think it's more and more added. I don't know if we're around 4,000 now, but I tell people, I always suggest to people, use that as the last part. Like, fall in love with the model, let them fall in love with you, get through that piece, and kind of put that franchise fee in a box and think of it as just this, part of your startup cost. Like if you were going to start your own business. And then when you get through all that, because as a franchise salesperson, that to me, that's the most important thing I can do during that discovery process is show the value of the franchise fee and the value of the royalties. That's it. Like if I can do that, if I can make it worth it at the end, then we have something to. But there's brands that certainly will struggle with that, and usually they'll be younger for the most part, or only a certain number of locations, unless they're really in sort of a niche space. But if you can do that, and you get to the end of the process, and it's like, now you tell me if that is worth it. And if the answer is yes, then I think that just becomes more perception than anything else. But it's not a comfortable conversation usually.
I think you and I could probably talk for hours on this topic. I'm gonna try to consolidate some of my comments. One is, like, imagine a real estate agent, you're buying a house, and they know that there's termites, and they're like, it's beautiful. Like, imagine having breakfast here on a Saturday.
Wait, hold on. But in the back, am I glitchy to you?
You paused a little bit there.
Sorry,
you're back.
You were okay, cool. Yeah, it was max headroom in there for a bit. All right, but go ahead.
So go ahead. So they know that there's termites, but they still sell you on the house. Like, that doesn't happen in franchising. And the example that I use probably overuse it. There was a franchisee that I did a podcast with, a husband and wife. They wanted senior care. They took care of their aging parents. Their parents passed away. They want to be in senior care. Very, very simple. The broker, who said, we work for free, which is inaccurate, said, well, no, you need to own a soccer brand or a donut brand. Well, the donut brand paid $75,000 commission. The soccer brand paid $50,000, and the senior brand paid $25,000. And so what happens here is that buyer trusted that broker. And because they said they coach for free and all the other BS that's associated with it. I'm obviously on a mission for the truth telling. I think franchise salespeople, I will say this publicly till I'm blue in the face, are undervalued and underpaid. They are looked at as it's selling a widget. This is not a widget. This is enterprise value. Secondly, when you look at commissions paid and you're like, here's what we pay our internal team that actually has blood, sweat, and tears for our brand, and here's what we're willing to pay someone that has no relationship with our brand, that's upside down. On the royalty front, I think the word royalty needs to change over time, because it's more like employee infrastructure than it is a royalty, because you think about where that goes. So all the support mechanisms, which if we go back to the 6-minute mark of here, all the things that you guys give to the franchisee is tremendous. That's what royalties pay for. And so it's more like an infrastructure bill, that there's no way that you could pay a royalty and get that much support for any brand. And so last thing I'm going to say is we have a client. It's the first time that I saw this, and I was very impressed. They had their franchise fee, and it wasn't overly high. I actually thought it was okay. But what they did is they broke down and they said, of this fee, $20,000 goes to for franchisee recruitment. So for us to get you, if you're organic, or for us to pay a broker, here it is. It was disclosed right in the FDD. I go, that's all I'm asking for, is a little bit more transparency in business when someone's about to lose their life savings. That's the opportunity that we can get to as an industry.
That I love that. I don't want to go too much off on a tangent, because I agree with you that we could probably talk about this for hours. But I was frustrated, over the last couple of years, maybe 2-3 years ago, when this responsible franchising phrasing started to become really popular, and it was like a buzzword, and I was like, well, what about us that have been doing that for the last 20 years anyway, right? Trying to bring in the right people and the right deal in the right situation, and I'm a huge fan of radical transparency. I mean, I would rather scare a candidate with things that they didn't even think of than tell them to make it sound so rosy. And because, especially with a brand like this, because I mean, we could sell 200 franchise. I don't want to sell a franchise. I want people that are going to renew. I want them to go bring referrals. I want them to go tell their friends and family about it. And there's just a lot of brands out there that's probably not the case. But anyway, it's responsible franchising, I think, is so important, and I'm glad it's getting the attention that it's getting. But be consistent with your message. Don't advertise that you're to these broker groups that you're giving them the entire franchise fee, and then go on an IFA panel that you're on a responsible franchising thing. Like there's no way. We can have another broker conversation, because there's some really awesome ones, and there's some groups that are different than others, and I have some of my best friends are in that space. But I know our getting broker leads is harder for us, because when someone buys Dallas, they get the whole MSA. They're buying into this huge area. I'll never do a 2-pack, a 3-pack, or anything like that. And because of that, there's people out there, regular people, that I know are missing out on this opportunity of it being presented, because there's not enough upside for the person that they're working with. And that's tough, but again, there's still there's awesome people in this business at all sides. And Well,
I like this. And obviously, like we're what I like to do in these conversations is paint a view of the culture of who's the people behind the business, because then the buyer can see like there's a human being here. Look, the buyer, and it's really tough to be a franchise buyer right now, because who to trust and how to cut the cards. There is not a best practice in this. Take the multi packs. Great conceptually, like you're securing all this territory. I saw a brand sell a 70 pack because the broker wanted the commission, and that franchisee opened up one and never opened up the others and failed. And it's because they deployed all the cash back to a franchise fee, not to operating their business. The other thing, when you sell these big multi-packs, the thing that drives more franchisees are franchisees. And so when you lock off a territory, and now the next person like, ooh, I would like in, you're like, oh, we're sold out. But you only have one in the market. I know, but we sold a 10-pack to block off everything.
Right.
I think responsible franchising, shame on the industry for that term. Nobody is challenging it and calling out the BS that exists for those that are really they're using it as a buzz term but really don't live it. And shame on the protector of the industry for putting them on panels and lifting them up. That the associations should be protecting the franchise buyer first, then setting infrastructure for the franchisor, because when we're messing with people's life savings, I think it's our duty to actually treat them well. And so to a buyer that may be watching this, I want them to hear this, because it's part learning how to cut the cards. It's learning to bet on the jockey, not the horse. It's listening to what, obviously, Mike, you said at the 6-minute mark, that I think is fantastic for why this is a business opportunity. Just to wrap this up, in closing, let's say this buyer has paid attention so far. What is your closing statement for why they should reach out and have a conversation with you?
I think for certain, if you're thinking about real estate investing and you have an interest in making a difference in the community, it's a part that we miss out on a lot, because people think of real estate and sort of very pro-capitalist, and not that I'm anti-capitalist, but for the person that wants to have something where they're going to impact the community and make change, this is something that wouldn't always fall on get on the radar, but it truly is. I mean, we are our mission statement, and we don't take this lightly. The first 3 words are to help others, and we go into every situation like that. So when we go into a home where the property is distressed and the person's crying because of whatever reason, we're going asking questions of how can we help that person. It may not even be that we buy it. It may be that we suggest they put on the MLS, put some paint on it. Long story short is that if you have an interest in real estate, if you think it sounds cool and you're like, I could probably do it on my own, you should definitely just have the conversation with us, to be like, just to make sure what you might be missing out on if you don't, because it's very easy to make very big, expensive mistakes in this business. So for us, we talk about a 42.5 franchise fee. If that saves one mistake of you missing a cracked foundation, it could potentially save your business. So that's what I will tell you. You want to make a difference. You want to feel good about what you're doing, and you want to truly feel like you're in this business. I'm not going to say in the business for yourself, not by yourself. That drives me nuts. But this truly is. There are so many people just in your community. You're going to have a mentor who's a seasoned franchisee. You're going to have all your other franchisees around you sharing contractor information, who to avoid, who to go with this. And then this corporate office who has so much loyalty and pride in the brand. I'm telling you, this is a special franchise, and people need to take a look at it.
I love it. And frankly, for you and I to be now disgruntled 20-year industry veterans, disgruntled is not a bad term. It means we want to make this industry better. And I can tell it with you. You're like, how do I build things that can have legacy effect for franchisees? And I appreciate that. I love that we had this conversation.
Exactly. I mean, we'll go off a tangent. We can talk later. I even bought a website. Yeah, I bought coreb.org, coreb.org. It's the Coalition of Responsible Emerging Brands, because I think there's a problem there. And I think there should be a group looking at responsible growth and just brand new things. I have all these ideas about how we can sort of clean a little bit, but I don't want to be negative about franchising, but there's work to be done. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
I think, Mike, real honestly, I think I think it's actually a positive message, because a lot of people in franchise development, their drive is driven by an uneducated CEO, board, or executive team that says, here's the number we want next year. And so they are pressured. So I don't think they're wrong to be pressured and have this pressure. But if we continue to have these conversations, how do we just build really good business? Those are the ones that rise to the top. And you can see that those are the ones that go from emerging to breaking the 100 unit mark. So anyway, I did not expect this. I told you all everything's off script, and it worked out great.
It was awesome. I did not expect this. I didn't know what to expect, but I am so grateful for this. It's so cool to find like-minded people in this business that really do care. I think if you just follow the mantra of like, do the right thing. It's a franchisor. You do the right thing. Whoever that's by, we'll be okay. You know.
I love it, Mike. Thanks for doing this.
So,
for Mike, I'm Nick. This was another
Franchisor
Hot Seat. Take